Hey guys, thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. If you're a returning listener, it's great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, really glad you joined us. Hope you like what you hear. So we have an awesome guest today. He runs an improv training company. Now, does that include comedy? Yes. Is it entirely comedy? Absolutely not. So super interesting. He is a very obviously well-spoken guy, but has a ton of information to share with us about how the human brain works, how to connect with people through improvisation, how to use improvisation to improve your outcomes, your relationships, your life in general. And you can work with him regardless. He's up in Minneapolis, but you can work with him regardless of where you're at because he actually offers stuff online as well, which I found out during our conversation. So without further ado, let's bring Stevie on now. Stevie, welcome to Salty Ginger Talk. I'm so glad to have you on the channel today.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Yeah. So, this is unique. We usually don't get to talk to people as soon. You and I connected like this week.
Yeah.
And we were able to get you on the podcast. There's usually a bigger stretch from when we do our intro call to when, excuse me, when someone actually comes on the podcast. So I love this because our conversation's very fresh in my mind, which is awesome. So, like I told you when we spoke, our podcast is about getting people to live a life of meaning and purpose. Like choose what it is you pursue, choose what it is you go after. I'm not going to tell you what that is. I'm not going to tell you what should have meaning or purpose to you. I can tell you some things that won't have meaning or purpose for you. If you're chasing money, you're going to be disappointed. If you're chasing status, you're going to be disappointed. If you're chasing material things, you're going to be disappointed. But I can't tell you what the other things are that matter to you. Maybe you really love sailing. Maybe you really love gardening. Maybe you really love martial arts. I don't know what it is. But if you go after something that has a purpose and is bigger than you, you're going to be much, much happier and much more fulfilled in life. So we have folks come on and just talk about their lives and how they learned where they, through their experiences from where they started to how they got to what they've learned about life. And, I said in the intro, which you'll see when we do the episode, but I do the intro and outro away from the guest. I think your path is an interesting one, and you spend your time largely trying to do something similar to what we do on this podcast, try to help people kind of get out of a rut and figure out, well, hey, what should I focus on here? Where am I going wrong? So with all that said, this is the most I'll talk during our conversation, but tell us about yourself. Where'd you start from? Where'd you wind up? And what'd you learn along the way? Walk us through it.
Well, first of all, you said we shouldn't chase money or fame. So podcast is over. Bye.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, I live by that philosophy of do what you love and the money will follow.
Yeah, that's right. I'm not saying it's not important. I'm saying if
like,
that's what you're after, you're gonna go wrong.
Well, and it comes down to logic too. If you chase the outcome, you're not going to be very good at the process. So you're going to deliver a mediocre product. So you're not going to get the money or fame or whatever recognition you're after because you're going to suck at what you do. And when my wife and I were talking to her daughter, my stepdaughter, when she was graduating high school and really trying to decide what was next, she was always kind of out there with performing and art and fashion, makeup, that kind of thing. And so we said, what are you thinking? And she said, I might want to go to college to be a lab technician. And we said, what? Wait, doing, we said, you've never once talked about science or biology, or you've never been intrigued by this stuff. Why? And she said, oh, I want to be a lab technician because I think I could do important work in helping cure diseases. And I think that's an important thing to offer the world is I want to be of use to the world. And I was pretty blunt with her. And I said, okay, you would suck as a lab technician. You're not going to help the world if you're lousy at something. You're just one more person who's lousy at it. We got enough of those. So you have to do what you really love. And you have to trust that you'll serve the world in your way. But that generation, she's in Gen Z, is very much about, I have to do something important. Social media shows them all these people that are changing the world, but they don't show the millions of people on social media who are just living normal lives. So it kind of puts pressure. And we said, you can't pressure yourself like that. you're going to go into something you don't like. So for me, that's what I focused on is what do I do really well and just do that. And then I'll figure out a way to be of service and of use to the world by doing what I do well, you know.
And what is that? What did you determine you do well?
Well, here's what's funny. I always grew up wanting to be a teacher. And I thought I love kids of all ages. When people say, what age would you like to be working with? Birth to death. Pretty much that's my frame. I don't care what age you are. There's something cool about every age. But I thought, I want to be an elementary school teacher because I really, I thought I could be good at that. And when I was in high school in the late 1800s, the guidance counselor said, there's too many teachers in America right now. Can you imagine a time when we had too many teachers?
No.
So he said, you're going to have to start at a one-room schoolhouse and in the middle of nowhere and work your way up. And I said, that is not for me. And so he handed me a personality test. Boy, should we not take those. And it was a personality test that many people still recognize today, and it was very ubiquitous back in the day. And the funny thing is, I looked it up a couple of years ago just to see. It's still around, but on their website it says not to be used for official purposes.
Was it Myers-Briggs, just out of curiosity?
No, it was not. No. Myers-Briggs came along well after this one.
Gotcha.
And I don't want to give the name because I don't
want
to.
No, that's got it. Totally got it.
Yeah. And what they did was the methodology behind it is they tested you on your daily interests. What did you like to do just for fun? And then they compared that to the daily interests of people who have a career. And if you match, then you'd like the same career. It's an interesting theory, but not really that accurate. So I answered a bunch of questions, probably like 300 of them. And then it comes back a few days later, and the printout you get, this was before digital media, the printout says, here's what you are. Number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, match. My top match was I am a female education teacher. So female, physical education. Those are two things I suck at being. So I said, I should have said, why am I still looking at the next one? Just
so, sorry, was it saying you personally were female? Not that you needed to teach females, that you...
No, I'm female. So,
So you were ahead of your time. You were ahead of your time on all this gender
exactly.
Confusion.
I couldn't afford to go to Denmark or the U of M for the transfer. But the funny thing is, in my house, I do the laundry, I do the ironing, I do the baking, but then I'm a guy in so many other stupid ways.
Yeah.
So I looked at the next one, and it was an even match between priest and nun. And I thought, okay, I'm going to keep looking. Don't know why, because I don't learn
there's
well.
something off with the methodology.
Yes. And I thought, whatever's next that is male and not celibate, we're going to take a good look at. And it was speech pathology or speech therapy.
Okay.
And I'd never heard of that. Grew up in Rochester, Minnesota, home of the Mayo Clinic. So my mom was a nurse through the Mayo system. She got me an appointment with a speech therapist. And the problem with doing that is if you just talk to somebody who does something, they're going to tell you how great it is.
Sure.
What you should do is shadow them for like a week and say, do I want to spend my time doing this 7-8 hours a day? Well, anyway, he said it's a great profession. You get to work with kids just like a teacher does, but you're more specialized, so there's more demand. You get paid better, blah, blah, blah. So I went to the university here in Minnesota that he recommended had the best speech pathology program. I was that. Now I had a new direction because some test who thought I was female told me to. And I was in that program for 2.5 years. And I was working with patients in the clinic. I was really involved. One day I woke up and realized I don't want to do this either. This is not what I thought it would be. And some people you'd like to date but not marry. I was fine dating speech pathology, but I really didn't want a long-term relationship with it.
There you go.
So I called home and my parents said, well, what do you want to do? That's what parents do. It's like, well, if you don't want to do that, what do you want to do?
Do something.
Yeah. Well, when a person's compass is spinning, you can't ask them for a reading. You
It's
got to help them
generally
stop.
not wise. Yeah, true.
Yeah, you got to stop the spinning of the compass. So, my parents said, there's this book. It's called What Color is Your Parachute? And it's been around since I think the 70s. It's still considered one of the best in the world for helping people figure out what it is they want to do. You can read the whole book, which tells you the profession, but also maybe where you might want to live, how much you want to make, and the lifestyle you want. Or you can do the short version that just kind of gives you a general direction. So, being a person who didn't like to study, I took the short version. And within a short period of time, like a few pages into the book, it became clear. I still want to educate people somehow, but I have to use comedy and
Mm,
humor as
mm.
part of my career. And I went to a few professors at the university and said, I dropped my major in speech path. I want to create my own major. And they said, well, you can't do that. This was not allowed back in the day. They said, here's the catalog, pick a major. I said, none of those fit me. I don't want to be, a biologist or a doctor or a teacher or whatever. And they said, what do you want to do? I said, I'm not sure, but it's got to involve comedy. So I want to study comedy. I want a degree in it. They said, you really can't do that. And I said, well, we'll see. And I went to two professors to get them to work together with me as special advisors. And we created an entire curriculum for a bachelor's degree called Theory and Performance of Comedy. So it involved how it works socially, psychologically, either performing it on stage or just being in regular life, because humor is one of the most important tools we have in communication.
Got
So
that
that
right.
was involved. They were talking to me about what I wanted to do with it. And they said, well, if you're going to use this for your career, then you better know about business. So I had to include business and economics in my comedy degree. I had to petition the university board of directors to have the program accepted because it was so unusual. They accepted it. I think they were short of tuition fees at that time, so I got in. Um,
Guys
I
willing to
had
pay us for this. We're proving it.
his money is good. Here's your diploma. And I had to write a dissertation, like a PhD thesis, on the classic and modern theories of comedy. I actually had to um, have a defense board. When you get your PhD, you take it and you give it to professors, and then they challenge you in a big meeting of 2 or 3 hours, challenging every one of your points of your thesis. And you have to defend what you've researched and written. So they said, even though you're getting a bachelor's, we're going to have you do a defense of your thesis. I said, my God, this is a little extreme. They said, if you don't want one of our degrees, you're going to have to work twice as hard. So I graduated with that. It's probably the most unusual degree ever created. And I'm one of the few people that use my degree in my career.
Yeah, right.
How weird is that? And I always knew I wanted to run my own organization. So I kicked around for a while, working for other comedy theaters, comedy clubs, working behind the scenes, lighting, sound, directing, all that kind of stuff, working on stage to perfect both stand-up comedy and improv comedy. Improv in the style of, if you've seen the TV show Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Yep, sure.
That's the style that I train in. I always wanted to run my own club, but I knew that, as a martial artist, I started studying the martial arts when I was a freshman in college. There's that apprentice master kind of process.
Yep.
So I wanted to apprentice with people who were better than me, and I didn't want to do anything too soon. I toured the country as a stand-up comedian for a few years just to get that under my belt. I
Sure.
knew I didn't want that for a career because it works serving yourself, but I wanted to serve other people too. So I thought, I want to know how to do that. And I want that part of my career. I still do stand up every now and then, but it's not my main gig. And then finally, got the opportunity to open my own organization with some co-directors and have been doing that ever since 1989.
Man, I love that. So one of the things I try to point out on our podcast, so we like we talked about in our intro call, we have a wide variety of people, old, young, all sorts of different ethnicities and religions and socioeconomic statuses. We're agnostic to all of those things. All we want to hear is, what have you learned from life? Like, tell us your lessons so that our audience can learn from those lessons. But we see themes. We see things that hold true to every single person. And you've already expressed one of those over and over again, and that is taking action. And
Yeah.
it's something that I hammer into our audience all the time. Successful people take action, even if you don't know if it's the right action, even if you don't know that it's the right path, even if it leads you down a path that you wind up changing, you learn from taking actions and then you can redirect. And Stevie's already talked about that a couple of times. So he did not want to be a female gym teacher, not teaching females gymnasiums, but
That would
become
have
a
been fun.
female and teach gym, right? He
Yeah.
didn't want to do that. Okay, got it. But he took the test and said, let me see what it says. He also didn't want to be celibate. So monk and nun were out. Okay, got it. Thumbs up. I share your desire of the fairer sex. I would never have chosen a profession which deprived me of those pleasures. So
At least not on purpose.
yeah, right, exactly. Sometimes I don't have a choice, right? I've been married for
Yeah.
32 years. I've kind of made my own bed. But um, then he goes to school. He doesn't like any of the degrees, but he wants to get a degree, so he creates his own through this difficult and very unusual process. But he's taking action. That's the whole point of my comments here, guys. Taking action gets you places, and it'll eventually get you to the place where you want. It might be a long, circuitous route, but I think it's really, really important to underscore that over and over and over again. And I love the humor. I talk about humor a lot. And if you want to motivate people, if you want to connect and communicate with people, humor is one of the best ways to do it because it's inclusive generally. And I'm not like I find insult comedy funny, but it's not like my main genre. I like clever
Yeah.
comedy, so I like comedy that includes people and people can relate to, where you're making observations that people find funny. Nate Bargatze is a perfect example. He's made a great career out of, hey, I noticed this about life and it seems different to me, so I'm gonna talk about it and make everybody laugh about it.
Well,
So
the thing about humor too is that what I learned in the research is what it does to your own brain.
mm,
Humor, there's a difference between humor and laughter. The physical act of laughter is different and has a different impact on us as human beings. When you laugh, you cross connect more centers of the brain to interact and work together than any other form of human communication. And you use the highest centers of the brain to enact humor because it requires understanding semantics, figuring out social cues, listening for incongruity in language. Basically, getting the joke is a lot of mental work. So the more you engage in humor, they've actually tracked it to higher IQ. The more you engage in it on a regular basis. And I'm talking about social humor.
yeah,
Just people talking and laughing together. Stage humor is a different thing,
yeah.
and that has a different impact. But everyday laughter with each other, it also is a powerful communication tool because humor and laughter is a social form of agreement.
Mm,
When we laugh at someone or with someone, we're usually doing it because we agree with what's been said. And the most common phrase that accompanies what's called a laughter episode lasts about 15 seconds as a common laugh span. Right after that, somebody will say something like, ha, you got that right. Or, been there. They say some kind of agreement statement. If you can get somebody to laugh, it's very difficult for them to disagree with you after they've laughed with you.
mm.
You'll never hear this. You'll never hear this. You're wrong.
Right.
It's psychologically impossible. Those two bash heads. So using laughter as a tool can help with disagreements. It can help people get away from bashing their heads together and saying, yeah, I see where you're coming from. I use it in social media all the time because we know how social media can just divide people. It is a wonderfully effective tool to create hate. The algorithms that are part of social media are designed for anger. In fact, an angry post will travel 16 times more efficiently through social media than a happy post will. And that's
Do you
because,
so that's a great. I'm just curious if in your studies of comedy, you learned anything on why. I know that's true. I
yeah,
don't know the psychological or the neurological reasons why hate or anger is more motivating or let's call it viral using
yes.
today's
There's a
terminology.
very simple neuroscientific reason
Yeah, what is it?
is neural input travels very slowly. Actually, our brain doesn't move that quickly.
Hmm.
All the information that is important to us comes through the eyes and the ears. The other senses are just minor senses, taste, touch, smell, that kind of thing.
Yep.
The eyes and the ears first go to the thalamus. That's the center of the brain. That's called the central switching station. Everything goes there, and then the thalamus decides where to send it. And it sends it out. Well, the first center of the brain that gets that information gets to decide how we feel about it and what we're going to do. The problem with that is the structure of our brain, where everything is laid out, right next to the thalamus is the amygdala.
Oh,
The
rough.
amygdala
Fight or
being
flight.
it's fight, flight, fawn, or freeze.
Mm.
Those are the four, actually. Fight or flight, we know. Freeze is what happens a lot of times. We've all frozen up in a conversation where we don't know what to say and we're paralyzed. That's the third response of the amygdala. The fourth response is fawn, which is, oh, no, no, I agree with you. Please don't be mad at me.
Mm.
It's fawning over a person to gain approval and acceptance. Those four things are right there in the amygdala. Rage, hate, lust, desire, they're all non thinking emotions.
Yep.
That's right next to the thalamus. Well, we react. The farthest center of the brain from the thalamus is the prefrontal cortex. More specifically, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, where executive thought occurs. That is strategy, considering consequences for our decisions, all of that kind of stuff. That part of the brain was last to evolve in human evolution because we didn't need it. In
Yep.
fact, it was dangerous at times. If a bear is chasing you, do you really want to ponder your options? You want your amygdala to go run.
Right.
Well, the prefrontal cortex also is the last part of the brain to wake up in human maturity as we grow up. Female brains, that part of the brain wakes up between the ages of 19 and 21. For males, between, I would say, around 70
Yeah, it's
is
just gonna
yes.
exactly.
So,
I'm still working on it. That's right.
yeah, I have hope, is what I'm saying. There is hope out there.
Yeah.
Well, what happens then is we get this input, it goes to the amygdala, we react. Then it takes this long trek up to the prefrontal cortex. Oh my God, that's a lot of work. I would rather just react. So the algorithms are only partially responsible for hate and anger spreading so quickly on social media. The other part is our nature and the biology of our brain just reacting. It takes thought to get to the higher part. It takes discipline. When I see an angry post, I stop and I do one thing. I slow down. Simply by slowing down, I give the higher brain a little bit of a chance to catch up and say to the amygdala, shut up for a second. We've heard you. We
Right.
hear you every day. Frankly, we're tired of hearing from you.
Keep it down.
Yeah. Then I back check the post. I see what source they use to gain their information. There are websites that show whether a source of information is left wing, right wing, or in the middle, neutral. I always trust neutral sources. I don't want one from either extreme. They only have one purpose: keep me engaged, make me click. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be a slave to that. So humor helps us get to that higher brain. I've had people post things that I thought were heinous, and I see the reaction posts. You suck. You're going to burn in hell. You're bald. I don't know where that came from. But I always say something like, I see where you're coming from. Then I'll add a little humor. Then I'll say, let's dig into this a little bit more together because I'm sure we both agree on something, even though we don't agree on everything. Let's find what we agree on. And that's going to get us to where we want to go. Usually people are okay with that, unless it's a bot,
Right.
can't argue with a computer.
You
But
can't. It's just pointless to do it.
yeah, it is. But that's how I use humor, and I make it a daily exercise. Here's something that your listeners can do, um, because it's a muscle you have to keep working. And some people say, oh, you're born with the gift of humor. No, you're not. You're born with your eye color, height, and that kind of thing. Nobody's born funny. Uh, People tell me when they see me perform, oh, you're naturally funny. I say, you've never seen me bomb. Then you'd know. There's a lot of practice. Most comedians, when you see them on stage, the material you see is at least 5 years old
Yep.
because it takes that long to get it perfected. It's a discipline. So I use what I call the transactional relationship exercise. I gave it that name to make myself sound smarter.
Yep. It worked. I'm very impressed already.
Yeah, good. I saw you sit up straighter a little bit. Um, Whenever I'm in a transactional relationship, I'm at the bank, I'm at the grocery store, I'm at a department store, wherever it's a quick transaction, I never let it stay a transaction. And humor is about interjecting something that doesn't belong in that situation. That's most of humor, something where it doesn't belong. And so I walked into a hotel the other day because I was going to be speaking at a conference. And what do they expect out of that transaction? Hi, are you checking in? Yes, Stevie Ray. Okay, you have a reservation for 2 nights, blah, 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 blah. I walked in, they said, hello, can I help you? I said, yes, I'm here to buy the Hilton. Now, it's not the funniest thing you've ever heard, but it doesn't belong there. And they wake up a little bit,
Yep.
and then we have a different interaction. One time I did that, I said, yeah, I'm here to buy the Radisson. They said, good, I want a raise.
I love it.
And I thought, you should get one because you keep this job. I was at just a convenience store the other day, buying nothing but a little packet of batteries. And I'm in line. I'm in the 12 items or less aisle behind people who have 35 items in their cart.
Mm.
And the young lady up in front is checking everybody out. Beep, 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 beep. She's asking the same question of everybody. You want this in a bag? You want a bag for this? You want this in a bag? She's in her zone. And I thought, first of all, she's being treated like a machine, and she deserves to be seen rather than just used. And I thought that's part of what I like about connecting with people is they're seen. I get up there, she takes my little packet of batteries. Beep, you want this in a bag? And I just said, no, but I'll need help to the car with it. Her brain short-circuited. She's like, what? And then she looked up and went, oh, cut it out. Now, here's what's fun about that. One, it brightens her day, makes her feel seen. She's a human now. And sometimes I don't even say something that's funny. Sometimes I'll just say, that hairstyle is really rocking, or that's a really nice tie. People like to be seen.
Absolutely.
But it sharpens my brain because if I let the patterns of daily life take over, then I'm stuck in the pattern too. And I don't have ownership of my space. I'm not taking control of my outcome. I'm letting it control me. So whenever I do this stuff, it sharpens me for when I need it most. Just like a good athlete doesn't wait for the game to, oh, I hope I throw a better pitch now. No, they're practicing for weeks before the game, getting that perfect pitch. So we should do the same when we're communicating and interacting with people, is practicing in the moments that don't matter when they do. And I do that all the time. It kind of goes along with what my very first karate instructor taught me. And this is the title I used for one of my books. I stole it from him. And he borrowed it from ancient martial arts philosophy. I went to him one day and I said, I was in kind of the middle grades. All the belts below black belt are called grades.
Mm,
Above black belt, they're called ranks. In the very old days, there were no such thing. You just wore a belt to keep your uniform tight.
sure.
And as the belt got old, it got dirty, and they just started saying, okay, the darker it is, the more experience you have, and that's where it came from. And then one guy created the belt system. The inventor of judo was the one who created the belt system and said, white belt, green belt, brown belt, now you're black belt, and ranked from first degree black belt to 10th, that kind of thing.
Sounds like a capitalist to me.
Yes. Well, he was Japanese, so, but he wanted a ranking system
Yeah.
because when martial arts moved from China through Okinawa, it was all self-defense. When it got to Japan, they wanted it to become, instead of self protection, self perfection. So it became a sport. And that's where they created the ranking system and everything else because they wanted to organize it around a sport rather than just fighting. Well, anyway, I went up to my instructor and I said, okay, I'm a green belt. What do I need to do to eventually someday become black belt? And he said, do 1,000 punches a day. And I said, just the simple punch? Yeah, he said, that's it, just 1,000 punches a day. I said, what about all the other fancy techniques we keep working on? And he said, I'll give you a little backstory on him and where this comes from. He was raised in wartime Tokyo, and he, fully grown, is only 4'10". So he got beat up every day coming home from school because there were no adults around to supervise during war. And he decided, I have to defend myself. So he learned boxing, judo, karate, wrestling, aikido, weaponry, everything. He taught us the same thing because he said, I'm going to teach you to defend yourself. And he didn't stick with whatever style was best. He said, whatever works, you use. He said, if there's a telephone nearby, you hit the guy in the head with a telephone. He said, that's called the telephone technique. So he was.
So you took karate from Jackie Chan, it sounds like.
Yes, he was like Mr. Miyagi that way. So,
Right.
so he was hardcore. And he said, if you get attacked, you're going to react very quickly. You have no time to think. You got to go, 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 go. He said, all the fancy techniques will be gone because you have to think about those. He said, you're going to punch or you're going to kick. You got one chance.
Yeah.
That's all you have. And you better have good muscle memory. So he said, if you do 1,000 punches a day, if you're ever in trouble, bang, it's there waiting for you. But if not, you're going to have to think and you'll fail. So that became the title of one of my books, 1,000 Punches a Day. How do you achieve success? Like you just said, action. Action is 1,000 punches a day. Instead of the one big thing that's going to turn your life around, which is often promised to us by liars, there is no one big thing.
Right.
There's 1,000 little things that will end up getting you where you want to go. One of my board members many years ago was a corporate salesman, and he was the best at it. He could sell mud in a rainstorm.
Mm.
And he got Sales of the Year award every year. And one year he got hired into a company 4 months into the fiscal year. So he was 4 months behind everybody else. With only 8 months of sales, he still won the award. Every other salesperson crowded around him after the award ceremony and said, tell us your secret. What do you do? What's your secret? And he said, there is no secret. It's called work.
Yeah.
And he said, I do my 10 before 10. What's that? I make 10 phone calls before 10 a.m.
Right.
And he said, I don't check my emails. I don't go on social. I don't do anything until I've made my 10 calls. That's my discipline. He said, after I've made my 10 calls, my day is free. Usually I'm catching up with people who are returning those calls. So I'm busier than all the rest of you. But you are looking for that one trick. You'll send out a mass email and then wait for the world to come to you. And he said, I never talk anybody into any sale. I listen them into it. I answer the phone and I listen. But I'm calling. That's his 1,000 punches a day, his 10 before 10. And he said, I always tell these younger salespeople, I can tell exactly why you're not going to be successful because you're looking for a secret instead of a technique. And this is work. He said, now, to me, it doesn't feel like work because I have a special personality trait. I like people. What a thing. So the 10 before 10 to me isn't work, is I get to call and talk to people. And he said, you don't want to talk to people. You're on email all day. Email doesn't sell anything. A voice does. And, I know another guy who's a professional speaker here in my home state of Minnesota. He booked a flight to go down to Florida for one day to meet with a client who had hired him as a professional speaker a few times. Took the guy out to lunch, had a great lunch. At the end, the client said, well, okay, great lunch. By the way, what did you want to talk to me about? And my friend said, nothing. You just sounded really stressed the last time I talked to you, and I thought you might need a little break from life. So I came down here just to have some fun with you, have lunch. I'm flying back to Minnesota now. That's 1,000 punches a day at like 30,000 foot level. But it's action. It's you got to do something. And so,
man, I love it. So, for what it's worth, guys, Stevie and I did not rehearse any of this. You've touched on so many things that I talk about religiously on the podcast. One of them is your brain, right? So you have to understand how your brain works if you want to be successful at controlling it and getting it to do what you want it to do, because your brain is only designed to keep you alive. Yeah. Like I always say, it's running on outdated software. That's what I try to explain to people. Right? Oh,
I'm writing that down.
Yeah, it runs on iOS 1, but you've got an iPhone 17, and the amygdala is right where it is for a reason, because back in the day it made sense. Like there was a lot of things that could kill you right now. Well, you talked about a bear. I always say you don't have to outrun the bear, you just have to outrun one of your friends, right? Not the bear, just outrun one of your friends. Slow guy gets it. But you had the bear, you had hoarding tribes that could come through your area and kill you in a war. You had weather events that could do like all sorts of things that could kill you. So it made sense to kind of be on guard. Well, we live in a much more domesticated world now. So most of those threats where you could walk out and just get killed immediately are mitigated. Like, could you get hit by a bus? Yeah. I mean, but come on, really. Those don't exist. But it's only been couple 100 years, even probably less than that things have been like that. Even if you go back 150 years, if you didn't get your crops in the ground in spring, you all starved in the winter because there was nowhere to buy food. And so your brain doesn't work the way we would have it ideally work in a modern society. And you have to understand that. And then I loved you talking about the pause, because that's what I teach. And I learned that through sports. So I know you have been a martial arts your life. I went through college on a baseball scholarship.
Okay.
And you hit the nail right on the head. So people say, how'd you get good at baseball? By sucking at it for a long time. That's how I got good at baseball. But I wasn't afraid of it. And the game's filled with failure. So you have to learn to maintain a positive outlook while you're failing. Because if you hit 300, that means you fail 7 out of 10 times at your job. Like that's just the math. And so you could go, let's just say you go on a tear where you're hitting 500 for 2 weeks. It's fun when that happens. Like the ball looks like a beach ball coming in, like you just can't miss it. Like you're just on it. The problem is if you go on a tear for 2 weeks, when you hit 500, you're going to wind up at 300 over the course of a season. That means you're going to go through a 2 week stretch somewhere where you hit 100. And that's not a fun stretch to go through, because then it looks like a friggin' aspirin coming at you, and it's really hard to track, and you're just not comfortable. But you've got to maintain the same mental approach, and you've got to continue to take action. It's the only way. I always tell people, like if you're a shooter in basketball, you're a good shooter. You go into a slump. How do you get out of it? By shooting. Like you don't get out of it by not shooting, even though you're not making the shot. You got to keep going. And I loved how you talked about that. Super, super important. And the other thing,
go ahead.
No, the only other thing that relates to it, I always thought as I moved up the ranks and got to higher levels of the sport, I would learn some, esoteric or really grandiose or really complicated theories that would help. So I was a pitcher in college. You know what they told you in college? Throw the first pitch for a strike every time. Tell them what you're going to throw them. Because when you look at the math, if you get the first pitch over for a strike, the batter's batting average goes down about 150 points.
Yeah.
Like it literally is the best thing you can do. Don't walk anybody and throw it over the plate. Then they hammered that over and over and over. That was it. It wasn't more. That's the baseball version of 1,000 punches. Like I had a coach that said, I don't care if you throw it underhanded. I want the count to be 0-1. 0-1 is the count.
Right in. Well, there's a saying in the speaking profession, speakers speak. They don't wait to speak.
Right.
So if you wait for the perfect client or the perfect fee or the perfect location, you're going to be waiting. Get out there and do it. And so in my downtime, I'm doing it for free for needy organizations or something like that, because it's 1,000 punches a day. The interesting thing is I use a baseball lesson when teaching younger martial artists, because they're thinking about, like, if you're going to spar and you either want to hit or kick somebody, they're thinking about the hit or the kick landing. And I saw a pro pitcher once talking about pitching, and he said, you got this little square you're trying to hit, that's your strike zone. You're trying to get it. The more you look at that goal, the more you're likely to miss it. And he said, what you do is you internalize and you think, okay, from the ground, through my legs, through my hips, through my shoulder, through my arm, I got to line everything up internally, and inside my body, I'm feeling the perfect pitch. I don't even look at that little square I'm trying to hit. He said, if you get inside your own body, do the technique right, you'll hit the strike zone every time. But if you aim at that strike zone, you'll miss it. It's kind of like there's that movie, Enter the Dragon, with Bruce Lee, where he's talking to the younger student, and he said, it's like a finger pointing at the moon. And the younger student is staring at the finger, and Bruce Lee said, no, if you keep staring at this, you'll miss all that heavenly glory.
Right.
All you do is concentrate on the internal technique. So I tell my younger martial arts student, I say, just think of the energy coming from your base foot through your hips into the other leg or into the arm. Internalize everything. Forget your opponent. They're going to be there whether you like it or not. You just get inside your own body and feel it line up all right. We perform improv in my company, and we tell them the same thing. If you're going for the laugh, you're going to miss it. Because if you look like you're going for a laugh, you're what we call self-aware. And in comedy, a self-aware performer isn't funny. A stupid one is funny. You have to look like you don't get it. That's a theory of comedy, is the audience is aware of something that the character is not. When you watch a sitcom, you're thinking, okay, you're bringing your girlfriend home. Oh no, you forgot that your old girlfriend was still in the apartment, and you're yelling at the TV, don't bring her home. Don't bring her home. It's going to be disastrous. Then they bring her home and everything falls apart. You as the audience say, I knew it all along. I told you not to do that. So we tell our performers, just be yourself and live the moment. And in comedy and in theater and in the martial arts, we all say you're either in the moment or in your head. If you're in your head, you're done.
Bad place to be. That's exactly right.
Totally in the moment. Same in sports.
Yep.
If you think about it, being a pitcher and go, I got to get this guy out, you're screwed. Being in the moment is, I'm just gonna line everything up and let it go. In improv, we work off of each other, and when the moment is right, everybody says what the other one thought they were going to say without knowing they were going to say it. And at the end of the show, look at each other and say, I can't believe how smooth that was. Oh yeah, and they laughed.
Yeah, right.
But people trying to get the laugh always fail.
So talk a little bit about that process. Talk a little bit about that process, because we got to the point where you went through and put your degree together, convinced them that you wanted this degree. You got it. You went out and started working at other places and kind of learned the business from doing anything and everything, which, by the way, is the best way to learn any business. I'm in the grocery business, and I started at
Yeah.
the end of a check stand bagging groceries and grabbing carts out of the parking lot. I've counted bottles. I've decorated cakes. I've fried potatoes in the deli. You name.
Uh,
I've checked. I've stocked. You name it. I've done it. I've received bread and chips. I've done it, and so that comes in invaluable now that I'm running a company because no one's going to fool me. I know I can't do that. Yeah, you can because I did it. I know how it works. You're not fooling me. But you wind up doing this. You know you want to go out on your own. How is that process from absorbing this information to transitioning to building your own thing? Talk a little bit about that if you would.
well, it was an interesting process because um, I had left working for other major theaters. In Minneapolis, we have a theater that is very similar to Second City in Chicago.
Sure.
In fact, it's called Dudley Riggs Brave New Workshop. And the gentleman, Dudley Riggs, he invented improv independently of the people doing it in Chicago. And neither one knew that the other was doing it at the same time. So kind of kooky. Um,
You're not
and
far apart. It does seem odd that they're pretty close geographically too.
yes,
Yeah.
in Chicago, it really started with a woman named Neva Boyd, who was taking in children as like a daycare operation, in the early 20s, I think it was. And then she played games with the kids to keep them occupied. One of those kids was named Viola Spolin, and she remembered those games when she started working as a professional. And so she used those games to help teach communication skills to immigrants who were trying to get work and needed communication skills as new immigrants to America. Then she turned that into a theatrical thing. Her son, who took those workshops with Viola Spolin, his name is Paul Sills. He really loved the games for their theatrical application. So when he and a bunch of guys graduated from the University of Chicago, they started Second City. So it kind of had this really weird thing.
Mm.
Dudley Riggs' really weird path was a circus performer. His whole family were aerialists, so they're trapeze artists, high wire people. But back in the day, the circus would shut down in the winter. So they had to keep busy finding some kind of work. This was during the era of vaudeville. So he would put together a troupe of people from the circus and do the vaudeville circuit as a comedy troupe. And this is the old kind of vaudeville, Hey, Shecky, where are you going? And not a lot of people know this, but vaudeville was very formulaic. It was different than burlesque and theater. Vaudeville always had 4 acts in every show.
Really?
In
I didn't know that.
Yes, in this order. And I worked with Dudley for many years, so I got the personal stories from him until he passed away some time ago. He said every show had a singer, a dancer, a stripper, and a comic. And it went in that order. And he said, so my troupe followed the lady with the tassels. Because back then there was fan dancing,
Yeah.
keep yourself covered with a fan. Well, it's a rowdy audience. It's burlesque. You've just followed a stripper. You're trying to do comedy. Are you kidding?
Right.
Nobody's listening. They're throwing stuff on the stage. And he said every night his troupe would say, how can we get these people to shut up and listen to our comedy routines? Finally, Dudley one day said, why don't we use what they call out and make that part of the show? As all genius ideas are, it was immediately dismissed by his troupe as crazy. Are you nuts? We don't want them to keep heckling. He said, I'm sure it'll work. They would bring out a steamer trunk full of hats and coats and glasses and costume pieces. And they would say, thank you for having us in Cleveland here. Tell us, who do you hate the most in this town? It was always either the chief of police or the mayor, people in power. All right, we give you a day in the life of the mayor of Cleveland. Then they would put on a hat and glasses and they'd do a little funny sketch. It was wonderfully well received because the audience is saying, oh, this is about us. And they were surprised at the success. So he kept building it and building it. And he was touring the country with his troupe. And he heard about this group in Chicago. Somebody said, they're doing this too. That's called improvisation. And he said, I don't want to call it that because that term belongs to jazz music. And I respect jazz too much to steal their term.
Hmm.
He called it Dudley Riggs Instant Theater Company because that's what it is, instant theater without a script. 1 year, uh, after touring many times around the country, 1 year his agent called when the circus shut down for the winter. He said, I couldn't get you a tour for this winter. I don't know what you're going to do. So they were in New York at the time. He thought, I have to keep my troupe together and working. He rented a storefront, empty storefront in New York, just to rehearse the techniques. People started passing by and looking in the window. Then they started knocking on the door and offering money to watch the rehearsal.
Wow.
He said, well, maybe this is bigger than just vaudeville. So he got them booked for a 3 week run at a New York nightclub. And critics would come and watch the show. Back in the day, there was something called the Algonquin Round Table. That's where all the writers and critics would get together at the Algonquin Hotel and hold court at their table while having martinis and cigarettes and make fun of everybody in society.
Right. I remember it. Yep.
Yep. Walter Kerr was one of those critics, very well known at the time, probably the best known in America. He came to almost every show and wouldn't give it a review because he thought this must be fake. There's no way they're making this stuff up on the spot. After 3 weeks, he finally said, I guess there's no shill. Remember that word?
Yes.
A shill in the audience is a plant. Well,
Yep.
he said, this is real. Dudley thought, okay, I want to settle down and open my own club. And he always loved Minneapolis whenever he toured through here. They actually opened for Lenny Bruce a few times in the old days. And so he opened his theater here in 1958, a year before Second City opened in Chicago.
Wow.
He used to tell me, I ran away from the circus to join a family. So I worked with Dudley for a few years. I went on the road for a few years. And finally, I got a call from a club that I'd been working with. And they were a comedy variety theater. They did everything from improv to sketch comedy to stand up to you name it. And they said, we don't want to run it anymore. We just want to own it. Would you take over running it? And there's this woman named Pamela Main who's going to work with you. I said, okay, she and I have worked together before. This can be work. And we got involved in it. And we quickly called them up and said, the books don't look good. You're losing money. They said, don't worry. This happens every summer. We're going to be fine. We said, okay, it's your business. Just keep running it the way we have it set. It wasn't doing good. And it kept getting worse and worse.
Mm.
And the important thing about that is that at that time in Minneapolis, there was Dudley Riggs for sketch actors. There was this club for variety actors and stand-ups and everybody else. Then there was one guy who owned every other stand-up club in town.
Wow.
He was often referred to as Jabba the Hutt because he was about the same size. He liked to take over everything. He hated the fact that we were an independent club. He was rather tyrannical to work for. He would promise people work and then not pay them. He would do nefarious things like make fake reservations at other clubs so they looked sold out.
Yep.
People would come to his club. There were many complaints filed at the Attorney General's office about the guy. So we felt it was very important to keep this independent club going. Well, finally, the owners called us up and said, we didn't know it was this bad. We've decided to sell to that guy. And we said, oh my God, you are going to devastate the comedy community in the Twin Cities. They didn't know it was that bad. But for the next few weeks, they started hearing the scuttlebutt of how bad this was going to be. So they came to Pamela and myself and said, if we sell you the business for $1, will you take over the debt that we've accrued and let us out of here? We thought about it for about a minute and a half and said yes. So we started in debt, somebody else's. That's how Stevie Ray's improv company got its start. Is we said, okay,
Inauspicious, and I think they call that auspicious. I think that's the word.
or foolhardy. So that's how we started in 1989, is taking over a dying club just to keep something going, and now we've been at it for 36 years.
Man, that's a heck of a story. That's something else. Now, you don't just use improv. I mean, so you still got the club and everything's still going. Got it. but you use improv in other aspects of life, in your speaking, in your coaching. Talk a little bit about that. How does it relate? I think I know, but I'd love to hear from
Yeah.
you. How does it relate to life?
Uh, when we first started the organization, we're a nonprofit arts organization, so we have a board of directors. And one of the members said that he kind of taught us the three big word philosophy. Everything you do can be defined successful if you know what three words define success for you. And the three words are different for every organization and every person. And he said, before you get to those three big words that define success, you better know one thing. What's the one reason you exist? One thing. And that's not easy to figure out because every organization has a lot of fingers. And improv companies usually have shows, they also have classes. So they work in many different ways to serve the community. Pamela and I said, okay, the one reason we exist, and you don't put this on a slogan or a marketing thing, it's all internal. And our one reason to exist was improve someone's life.
Mm,
That's it. If we know that, then we can judge our actions by it. If what we're doing doesn't end up improving someone's life, we shouldn't be doing it.
yep.
Then it's for a different reason. So we looked at our improv classes. We teach improv, stand up, sketch comedy, musical improv, that kind of thing. We said there are performers who want to be on stage, but there's all these other people who want to use this to improve their life in general. So we were the first to start marketing to the non-performing artist community, what we call normal people. And so we ended up getting accountants and engineers and attorneys and doctors taking improv. And they would say, I need to learn on my work on my presentation skills or my teamwork skills or handling tough situations on the spot, which every profession has. And so we were focused on their everyday improvement rather than making them funny. I would say only about 20% of our students ever want to be on stage.
Sure.
The rest just want a better life. Well, one day I remember one of our students coming to us who was an account rep for the large agricultural company Cargill. And he said, I used that technique you taught me last week when I was working with a client, and it really helped me through a tough situation. I said, great, glad to hear it. He said, have you ever thought of instead of waiting for individuals to come to you, you go to companies directly? And we at Stevie Ray's have a one-word business plan. That word is okay. And I just said, oh, okay. I had never thought of doing that. So we started calling up businesses. We didn't know how to approach them. We just said, we teach improv techniques for the workplace. It was a hard sell at first because back then nobody knew what improv was. Or if they did, it was comedy. And they would say, are you trying to teach us how to be funny? No, no, no. We're trying to give you techniques that'll help you. And after a while, it started taking root and it quickly became one of the fastest growing parts of our company. And now it's half of what we do. So over the years, all we've done is say, okay, we've been called by every organization you can possibly imagine that says, we think this might be helpful for us. And we've said, okay, let's see if we can help you. I did a workshop for a church that was losing members and they didn't know how to outreach and get more members. So I said, okay, we'll use improv techniques to brainstorm expanding your mission. At-risk youth, how can they learn self-confidence so when they get out of school, they can get a job and have a good life? I have been shocked by how many organizations I never would have thought wanted this. Got called by an accounting firm. And I thought, what does an accountant need improv for? First of all,
that seems the antithesis, does it not?
You don't want them saying, well, just try a decimal point here. Let's see how that works out. But they said, well, here's why. Numbers don't speak for themselves. people have to speak for the numbers. And every accounting firm is the same about the outcome. You
Yeah,
either
sure.
do the accounting right or you don't.
Yeah,
The
stack up the debits
relationship,
and credits, right? Yeah,
yeah, the relationship is what counts. So if a client doesn't feel like they can talk to you easily and it feels comfortable, they're just going to go to a different accounting firm. So we need you to come and help our accountants be personable in a profession that they didn't expect that to be part of the job description. I got a call from one law firm, really surprised me because the law is obviously a great fit for improv because quick thinking for the courtroom, that kind of thing, being
sure.
able to handle on the spot tough situations. This one law firm said, we're one of the top law firms in the country, and we routinely steal business from other bigger law firms. We've always wondered why. So we finally took the risk and asked our clients, why did you choose us instead of them? And they said, we steal business from law firms in LA, New York, and Chicago all the time. And their clients said, because you're funny, a law firm. And I said, you got to be kidding me. And they said, here's the deal. You're either good at the law or you're not. So we're all good at the law, but you have a long relationship with these clients and you have a personable one. Now, they said, we love coming to you guys because you're fun, you're funny, you make the process enjoyable. Something that's not typically enjoyable,
Right.
contracts, law, that kind of thing. They said, because you're fun, we want you as our firm of record. So that law firm called me and said, can you do a humor workshop so we understand more about this intricate way of doing business using humor? Because we're pretty good at it, but we don't know why. So I did a humor workshop for lawyers. I just said, okay. And there it came.
I love it. It's
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about it, and we talked about this a little bit at the beginning of our conversation here, the ability to relate to people,
Mm-hmm.
humor is such a great tool and or conduit for that to happen. It's
Mm-hmm.
so applicable in almost anywhere in your life. And at least for me, I shouldn't speak for everyone, but for me, when I hear the word improv, that's literally the first thing I think of is improvisational comedy, right?
Right.
Whether it's whose line is it anyways? Chris Farley started at Second City. You know, he
Yep.
came up with Matt Foley, motivational speaker there, all of those things. But it translates to literally every instance in your life. And for those of us who have probably more years behind us than ahead of us, myself included, we right we have learned that you never know what's going to happen day to day. You can find yourself
Yes.
in situations that you are were not anticipating, were not prepared for, and you need to be able to react to them in a way that at least doesn't blow you off the map. You got to at least stay in the game, right? And you might not be able to
Yep.
solve it. Like I'm a golfer, and it's one of my favorite sayings: "You can't win a golf tournament on Thursday, but you can lose it because you play 4 rounds." You know,
Yep.
and if you just hang in there and stick around, you don't know what's going to happen the rest of the 3 days. But if you go out and blow up and shoot an 85, you're cooked already. So you can't win it, but you can lose it. I think about like those situations the same way. How do I just control this until I can get some time to think about it and put a plan together to effectively to put together an effective approach on how I want to deal with this?
One of
Um,
my board members joined the board after he took improv classes for a long time. I get this phone call one day, and he said, "Hi, my name is Bill. You don't know me, but I'm in one of the improv classes that's being taught at your school." And I said, "Oh, hi, nice to meet you. What can I do for you?" He said, "You can tell me how you do this." Uh, I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, I'm a principal, and he's one of these guys. He's a retired principal who won't quit working.
mm,
He's in his 80s and he still tries to find more work as a principal. He's a fixer. If a school is broken, they send him in to fix it and mentor another principal to take over. And he said, I was walking around the halls one day, because that's what a good principal does, get out of the office. I was talking to one of the teachers and I said, you know what I do every day? Improv, because I can have my whole day scheduled, but suddenly a parent comes in with a problem, or a teacher can't make it to work and I have to sub, or a student is having a crisis and I've got to work with that student. Oh, I should do improv. And the teacher he was talking to said, Well, you know where I'm going tonight? To this place called Stevie Ray's to take my very first improv class. You should come with me. And he thought, oh, crap. Now I got to put my money where my mouth is.
Right? Yeah.
But he called me and said, I can't believe what I experienced. I walked into a room of 16 total strangers, and within 2 hours, they were working together cooperatively toward a common goal, and they were all connected in a way that hadn't happened in 2 hours earlier. How did you do that? I said, I didn't, you did. I
Mhm.
wasn't there. But he said, I got to know more about this, and I think every teacher and principal in America should take improv because that's what this is about. But it surprised him. Like you just said, every day is some kind of improv. And so he became a devotee. And to this day, he's still on our board of directors because one day he said, principling is being an improver. Then he was forced to take a class in it.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, and I mean when you stop and think about it, it's a skill like I try to engage my limited prefrontal cortex as much as I can, and think and think critically about situations. And so I filter a lot of things through tools that I have found useful. One of them is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and
Yeah, good one.
if you understand what's motivating a person, where they're at in life, it will help you relate to them better. And that's where I think a lot of people go wrong is they're looking at things from their perspective in life instead of the person they're dealing with's perspective. This goes back to your sales guy that said, I listen, I don't sell. And so try to understand that. And then I think a lot about Darwinism.
Uh-huh.
And most people don't get what Darwinism is actually about. Darwinism is about adapting to a changing environment. It is not survival of the fittest, like so many people like to quote.
Exactly.
And the organisms and or species that adapt the best to a changing environment are the ones that endure. And that's improv, right? I mean, the whole
Yep.
thing is just improv.
And the brain, there's another interesting fact about the brain that helps me work with other people better. And that is there are things the brain does efficiently and inefficiently. The most inefficient process in the human brain is information processing. It hates data. That's the prefrontal cortex, and it doesn't like to work and it shuts down pretty quickly.
Mm,
So the more information you load up on somebody else, the quicker they're going to shut down. And it's not because it's not important information or they're a poor listener, it's the human brain just cannot absorb that much. Anybody who's gone to a mortgage closing understands this because you're sitting there with a pile of papers 3 inches thick, and the person is legally bound to explain everything on every page.
that's right.
Okay, and this page means that if you default on whatever, and this page means that after a few pages, all you do is nod your head and sign.
I
You are
just
not
you can
listening.
have the house. I don't want to do this anymore. It's your
Yeah,
house. No.
and that's not because you can't focus. It's because the human brain hates statistics unless it's grouped into threes. A pattern of threes is what the brain loves the best because the most efficient function of the human brain is pattern recognition. That's what it does every day. It's called what psychologists, neuroscientists call the default operating system of the brain, is looking for patterns because it finds a pattern, falls into it, becomes a habit. Habits lower our stress level and they make us more productive. And that's what the brain wants. No work, high output. So if it finds a pattern, it loves it. One thing in a row is, of course, not a pattern. Two things in a row might be a pattern, but we're not sure yet. Could be coincidence. Three things in a row, we've got a pattern.
Now we're convinced.
So if I tell you, okay, you're buying this house, here's a bunch of information that you're going to need to know that's really important. Right away, you're stressed. Right away, your brain says, I don't want to hear this. So I've already created a barrier between us. If instead I say, look, there's only three things you got to remember, you immediately calm because the brain says, three, I can do that. I love three. In fact, if you give people three things to remember, they'll remember it. If I give you 10 digits in a row, you'll forget them. If I break them into clumps of three, you have area code, prefix, and phone number.
Mm,
Remember 10 digits when they're grouped in threes. If I say three things, you calm. If I give you a fourth thing to remember, you won't forget the fourth, you'll forget all three. That's what the stress level is. So when you're talking about understanding where other people are coming from, they have a pattern that's different than yours. That's the basis for almost all frustration and anxiety.
mm,
The brain also looks for similarity versus dissimilarity. It really likes similarity, and that comes from our tribal beginnings. Is dissimilar is a threat, and it wasn't from wars or violence. It was from pathogens and germs. More people in the world have died from germs we were not immune to that were brought from another geographic location than in any war. I mean, most of the Native Americans in North America died from germs the Europeans brought over, not from
yep.
bullets. So the brain is attuned to, if you look from a different geographic area than me, then my brain gets an alarm system. This is why racism has been so hard to eradicate, because visual is
Yep.
everything. The visual cortex of the human brain evolved long before the auditory cortex did. The visual cortex is twice as big and it's more powerful. So what we see outweighs what we hear. If you sound smart but give me visual, not too confident, I won't believe you. So the visual cortex is running everything. I see before I hear. If you look different than me, I get an alarm system. Everything visual, including height, age, gender, skin tone, facial construction, like, a face from Northern Europe looks different than a face from Southern Europe, from the Greek islands to Ireland, from Russia to Texas. All of these facial differences alarm the brain. And that's why we get alarm systems that we're not even aware of. There's one thing that every human has as a tool to erase the alarm system when the brain sees dissimilar: the human smile. If we smile, the brain goes, oh, you're like me. If you get people to laugh, well, that's a connection. We laugh at the same things, therefore we are the same. The differences are erased. You and I are very similar visually. Same age group, same European face, same skin tone. I'm a little better looking than you, but we'll let that slide.
Hey, that's not a high hurdle to get over. I wouldn't hang my hat on that. I'm just saying.
But a smile, I just taught a series of workshops for high school students who are soon to graduate and go on to either college, tech school, or the business world, or work or career, whatever. And the whole thing was about connecting and networking with people. You're going to have an interview, you're going to connect with somebody, you want an opportunity. And I said, look at all the differences in this room: height differences, age differences, appearance differences. There were obvious differences of cultural tradition because many of the young women were wearing the Muslim hijab. So I said, right there is a difference. And I said, none of that matters once you smile and laugh with me. Until you do that, there's that barrier we have to get over. And we need to get over that barrier. There's an old Confucius saying from China that fits with connecting with other people with differences. Not to understand another person's thinking does not make him confused.
It's like it's that's similar to holding a grudge, right? So
Yeah.
holding a grudge is like drinking poison and expecting your enemy to die.
Exactly.
It only impacts you.
So if somebody is different, it's a pattern recognition part of the brain that's sending the alarm system. It takes a lot more work to look into statistics and figures, which is why people don't do it. But if you do that, you will see the statistics prove our innate reasoning wrong. For instance, there is more genetic diversity in one pack of chimpanzees at the zoo than there is between every single human being on Earth. Think about that. More genetic diversity in 20 chimpanzees than in billions of humans. Yeah, well, we're all Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens were not the first, and we weren't the most powerful. You know,
Yep.
Homo erectus, Neanderthals, Australopithecus, all of these other what they call hominins, which were human-like, they were around and they were doing great. They were stronger than Homo sapiens. They were better at making tools and all that stuff. The only thing Homo sapiens had was that they grouped together in larger groups, so biodiversity kept them alive. And if a catastrophe happened, they weren't all wiped out. Suddenly, there are no other hominins on the planet other than Homo sapiens. You know, well, that's because we had a greater diversity among us. So if we look at people, we need the kind of diversity we're having just to survive as a species, um, because we're not out of the woods yet. Mother
Well, look,
can shake us
yeah,
off.
you just described how I got promoted. I just said if I'm the only one left, they got to promote me. So I just keep hanging in there and hanging in there, and finally I was like, well, we got to go with Canfield because it's the only one left here. We got like I don't know what to tell you.
My business partner, Pam, if somebody in the troop is joking about a complaint, she'll say, yeah, send them to HR. That's me.
Oh my gosh, I love
My
it.
my parents were so worried about me having a stable career because, comedy and all that kind of stuff. I have an older brother who's a mechanical engineer. There's a job. I have a
Yeah.
younger brother who runs a heart lung machine for open heart surgery. I wouldn't let him give me aspirin for a headache. Anyway, I got a younger sister who's a special ed teacher. So here's all these careers and then me. And they were always worried. And one day, not too long ago, my mother, who's still with us in her 90s, came up and said, we always worried about you being stable, but we never worried about you being happy.
Oh yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
And then my younger brother came and said, you know what? We finally all figured it out. You're the only one in the family that can't get fired. I said, oh yeah, I've almost fired myself a few times, but I like me too much.
I talked myself into it.
Yeah.
I talked myself into sticking around.
Yep.
So, but speaking, that's a great segue because if you put Stevie Ray into the Google machine, once you get past all of the articles about the legendary guitarist that was tragically killed in the helicopter accident,
Yep.
the first thing that pops up with you is your business and the mantra "Own your space." I was
Yes.
hoping you could talk a little bit about "Own your space" while we were on here.
It was interesting because I've been a professional speaker for many years, but I only recently was talking to the two co-directors of Stevie Ray's, Pamela, who is the co-founder, and Joe, who's our one of our other directors, the artistic director. And I said, there's something about the speaking I'm doing now that doesn't quite feel like it's all me,
Hmm.
and I got to rebrand it. And when you work with somebody for as long as I have with them, they said, okay, what are you thinking? And I would talk about the things that I speak about and the things I like. And they kept saying, that doesn't sound like you. That sounds like something you could do. So you got to get away from what you could do into what you are.
Yeah.
And I said, I finally, after like a couple of weeks of heavy introspection, I use that word because I went to college. Uh,
Heavier introspection, which
Heavy's big. You can check out the gut. Uh, and I finally said one day I was on a conference call with him, and I said, I've always gone back to the phrase that somehow appeared in both my martial arts training and my improv training, and that is own your space. When I was working with that older Japanese gentleman, who's at only 4'10" and much older than the rest of us students, he could take any one of us. He could defeat any student in the class. And I asked him, we're younger, we're faster, we're taller, we got a bigger reach, whatever. Why is it that you're able to defeat every single person here? And he said, because you don't own your space. You see me and you see my rank and my experience, and you immediately give me your space. And I've already defeated you. And everybody knows in the martial arts, the fight's over before it starts.
Hmm.
Look into the other person's eyes and you know who's got it. The rest is just going through the motions. Masters have been known to square off, and I'm talking the old days, the real masters. Uh, they
Long,
wait, and one
long
goes,
white beard.
yep. And they wait, and there have been times when one says, I bow to you. No fight, you win. I can
Yeah.
sense it. So he says, you have to learn to own your space. And he said, that's not dominating somebody else's space. That's owning yours, allowing them to own theirs. So there's cooperation. And he said, a fight is really more of a dance in which one person is a little bit more successful than the other, but it's more of a dance than a clash. So I took that with me for years. Later on, when I was starting to learn improv, I got a chance to work with Paul Sills, the founder of Second City. He was in his 80s and he had retired to northern Wisconsin. He converted a barn into a theater. How classic can you get? He was taking groups of people from around the world for 1 week intensive improv workshops. And you were fortunate if you were chosen to be part of that group. So I got a chance to go. First day, he said, all right, what we're going to do for this whole week is just teach you people how to own your space. And I thought, my God, two entirely different disciplines converging in my career. And I told my co-directors, I think I've been teaching that for my whole life without knowing that's what I've been teaching.
Mm,
What I teach is how do you own your space when it's not easy? Owning your space is easy when everything's going your way. But in the moments you don't expect something to happen, the moments that somebody is in your face or throws you a curveball, baseball reference, or something that you didn't want to have happen, how do you own your space then? Are you a leader? Are you a team member? Are you a new person? Everybody still has to own their space, especially at the times when the space wants to own you or other people want to own you. I teach self-defense, a lot of women's self-defense, and also young people who might be vulnerable. And I'll say, I'm watching you walk in the room. I can tell if you own your space just from that walk. And I teach them the phrase for self-defense is bullies seek a victim, not a challenge. You're going to be the challenge, so they pick somebody else.
yep.
That's true of life.
Yep.
If you are going to be a victim, then why are you surprised that you're a victim? You have to own it. And even if you're in very difficult circumstances, you still have to own it. When I do workshops for at-risk youth, I'm very impressed by the teachers because even though these kids, some are in poverty, some families are homeless, and they're in difficult situations, the teachers say, yes, and you still have to do the work. That's another phrase from improv, yes, and.
Mm,
That is a phrase a lot of people have heard in business. Many don't know that it came from the early days of improvisation. Back in the mid 50s, when improv was first being formulated, it wasn't very successful. The shows were like half and half because nobody knew what they were doing.
yep.
And there was this group of people that started in St. Louis, Missouri, and every night after the shows, they would sit around a kitchen table at 2 a.m. in a house they rented and talk about the show. What went right, what went wrong. After a while, they started to make some agreements that turned into guidelines, that turned into rules. And one of those, and they eventually became known as the kitchen table rules. To this day, those rules are still in place. And one of them, they said, we seem to do better when we agree with each other than when there's conflict. But even if there's conflict, we have to have a way to get through it. And they created the rule of yes and. Yes and means you take what's given to you, work with it, acknowledge it, and add something.
Mm,
Keep it moving forward. The process of improvisation is to keep conversation moving forward step by step. Yes and is the opposite of the most common phrase you'll hear, which is yeah, but. Now, the reason but is such a damaging word, it's a psychological trigger word. When you say but or its cousin, however, it causes a reaction in the listener's brain they're not even aware of. That's what trigger words are. The triggering effect of but is when we hear that word, we don't remember anything that came before it.
Wow.
And we don't trust anything that comes after it. That's a really harsh impact. I didn't know how powerful it was until I started testing it. I use this example in workshops. I'll say, all right, I'll have somebody sit in front of me and I'll say, you just sit there and be an employee, and I'm going to give you some feedback, maybe from an evaluation. And I say, how many of you have heard this advice? If you're going to say something negative, start with a positive. Everybody says yes. Or the critique sandwich, positive, negative, end with positive.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
those are lousy. No psychologist ever recommends that. That advice came from a manager who was uncomfortable being honest.
That's right.
Because starting with a positive, going to a negative makes it easier for the speaker, not the listener. So I tell the person sitting in front of me, I'm going to start with a positive. I want the whole room to say the word but when you know I'm going to say it. And I say, well, Joe, thanks for coming in. I've got your 360 here in front of me. First of all, your fellow teammates really love your attention to detail. They love how you can get into the heart of every matter and pick it apart so nothing is missed.
But
Everybody goes, but I say, now you can see it coming, right? I look at the face of the person I'm facing at that moment, and you can see that it changes because
mm.
they feel it coming. And I've done this. I've said, what did I just get done saying? 9 times out of 10, they say, you know what? I can't remember.
That's wild.
It's really wild. I thought it can't be that powerful, but it is. I just said, but. Um, and so I say, instead of but, we use yes and approaches. You never say the phrase yes and. It's a
Right.
philosophy and a theory. But words like if, and so are connective words. Whereas but and however are what we in improv call negations. A negation cancels out everything that came before it. And
Mm.
frankly, if everybody's going to forget what you just said that's positive, why say it?
Bro, what's the point? Yeah, right.
Also, it destroys trust because you're playing me. You're using that positive to get to your real point.
Yep.
And I tell people, look at kids when they play. The reason we trust children implicitly is they don't use these games. If you and I are playing tag and you push me down, I don't start with a positive.
Right.
I don't say, well, Joe, you're really working on your assertiveness and that's good. However, moving forward, you'd say, you're a weird child. Get away from me. A child says, don't, that hurt.
Stop shoving me, you jerk.
Yeah. In business and in the workplace should be the same thing. Hey, that thing you did doesn't work. Please don't do that again. Done. No positive, negative. Yes, if, yes, and yes, so is how do you deal with an objection? This looks like it costs too much. A negation would be, you're right, the budget's a little high, but what we've thought of is a way to make it possible to work with. You've lost me at but. Yeah, you're right. The budget's higher than it was last year. So what we're going to do,
Mm.
because I use the word so, you keep listening.
Yep.
You know, you know what? Can I come in on Thursday? You know what? It would be great to have you come in on Thursday if we had plenty of other staff members. Since we don't have quite enough staff, we're going to need you to come in and we're going to do this and this and this to make it easier for you. If and so, I use those all the time. It makes my brain work harder because but comes from the amygdala. Yes, and comes from the frontal cortex. So I'm working harder. I'm thinking smarter. I'm making my IQ grow biglier, and the listener is better served. I practice this all the time. No negations is probably the biggest rule in improv. I'll tell you a story about how I practiced it. When I first moved to Minneapolis to begin my improv career after I graduated college, there were 3 other guys living together as roommates. And one of them was my old buddy from college. So he said, come and live with us. Well, they'd been together for a year before I got to the Twin Cities. And they said, all of us practice improv. So our group is an improv group, which means we're going to follow the improv rules, which means no negating. And I said, well, what do you mean? We're not performing. They said, no, this is in life. If one guy started a bit, and that's what people in comedy call any routine, they call it a bit. Like if you see Jerry Seinfeld, he'll say, I'm going to do my car bit.
Mm.
You know? If one guy started a bit, everybody else has to go along with it. No matter what the bit is, we have to agree and go along with it until that guy stops it. So I'm new to town. We're going to a party. My buddy Fred says, Hey, I'm going to a party. You want to come? Sure. Well, I was hoping because I'm a single young man, I might meet somebody there at that party. We show up, door opens. The young lady who's the host says, Hi, Fred. Who's your friend? Before I could answer, Fred said, This is my friend Jed from Oklahoma. That's the bit. I can't negate it. So she said, Hi. I said, Hey, how you doing? I'm Jed from Oklahoma. The whole night. Because none of these people knew me. Well, where are you from? Well, I'm improving the whole night. I'm from Jasper, Oklahoma. It's about 30 miles south of Oklahoma City. What do your parents do? They're shepherds. They raise sheep. Well, of course, I was pissed off because now I can't meet a nice young lady because I'm
Yeah, for
from
sure.
Oklahoma. One time we went to, and I couldn't stop it until Fred stopped it. He didn't stop it till we left the party. We went to a diner, all four of us one day. We were going to go see a matinee movie. And we were going to grab lunch at this diner. We sit down, and we'd been to that diner 100 times, so the servers knew us. Came over, hey guys, what do you want? One guy looked at me and said, Well, Morty, I'm looking at the menu, but I'm seeing they got, but they don't have. I mean, what is this? And I had to be Morty. So I turned to the next guy and said, Well, Shecky, what do you think we should have? Pretty soon we had four old Jewish guys at the diner, Shecky, Morty, and whoever. And the first guy wouldn't stop the bit.
Oh, no.
So we missed the matinee sitting in that booth until the server said, We're closing. You guys got to leave.
Get out of here.
Believe me, we tipped huge.
I hope so.
Well, the fun thing is that for decades after, I'm doing the improv shows. If any of those three guys show up into town and they come and sit in on a show and we're on stage together, it's like we've never been apart. And it flows like butter. And the other troupe members say, You guys haven't seen each other in decades. How can you just get right back together like that? I said, You be Shecky in a diner for 4 hours. Yes, anding everything. And the impact of this is Alexa, the personal digital assistant. Google wanted to create their own version of Alexa, but they call it Google Assistant. They wanted it to be more conversational. Alexa, what's the temperature outside? The temperature is 72 degrees. They wanted Google to be more personable, more conversational. Every computer coder on the Google Assistant team was required to take improv classes because improvisation is building block of communication, one after another in cooperation. Even if you disagree, you yes and in the disagreement. So I don't have to say yes because I agree with you. This is how I work with disagreement with people is, yes, you feel that way, and I feel this way, and there's a middle ground, not but. So Google Assistant, when you say, what's the temperature outside? Now it'll say, it's a beautiful 72 degrees, and you should take your dog, Bingy, for a walk. And then if you say, well, Bingy's a little tired, it knows how to yes and that. You're right. Bingy is tired. You should wait 30 minutes. Then it'll be 75 degrees and much more comfortable. And it's a whole different coding system because of improv. So I use yes and in everything I do.
Man, it's such a great approach because it keeps possibilities open, right? I mean, that's one of the things I try to talk to people about is I avoid using the word no. I appreciate you talking about but. I have 100 ways to say no without saying no. Man, that's going to be Japanese. Yeah, it's going to be difficult for me to accomplish. I think it's going to be hard for that to work in the budget. Those are all no's, but without saying no, because it allows us to problem solve going forward instead of just slamming the door. So that's awesome.
Negation.
Yeah.
Yep. No is a negation. One of my old students is a corporate consultant, And he used humor and yes, and he submitted a proposal to a client. They said, "Oh, can you shrink the budget a little?" I mean, I love the code words instead of this is too much money.
Right?
So he cut out some of this, cut out some of that. He kept resubmitting and resubmitting every time. Can you shrink it a little more? Can you shrink it a little more? Finally, he took his budget to a copy machine and copied it at 25% size. And he emailed them this tiny little budget. And he said, "This is as small as I can make it and still be able to read it." They laughed and said, "Yeah, you're right. We're beating you up too much. Let's come to some agreement." So instead of no, it was, "I'm going to make this funny."
I gave you exactly what you asked for. You're welcome. So we have listeners from all, I mean, I know you're in the Twin Cities. We have
Yeah.
listeners from all over the place. If people are interested, whether it's professionally or personally, about learning more about your operation or coaching or training, what's the best way for them to approach that? How do they find out more information?
Our website, stevierays.org, has everything on it from the shows to the classes to the keynotes to the workshops to one-on-one coaching to my books. I left out my award-winning baklava recipe because that would be too much. I'm a beekeeper, so I used honey from my own hives to make baklava. I submitted it to the largest state fair in the country, which is the Minnesota State Fair, and I got third place. So
Nice.
yeah. So stevierays.org has everything they want to know.
Excellent. And do you do anything? I don't know. Like, I legitimately don't know the answer to this question. Can someone do things online?
Yeah.
Really?
Yep. Yep.
How's that work?
Just like you and I are doing now.
Sure.
Now, the improv games are very interactive. So my workshops and keynotes are all in person, very highly hands-on experiences. They're playing games and doing exercises. Obviously, during COVID, I had to adjust that for an online working environment. So I've learned since then to say, okay, and figure out how to make it work online.
Improved it, right?
Yeah, basically. Hey, gotta pay the bills.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh my gosh, I love it. So one of the things I do on the podcast, we cover a lot of territory, talk about a lot of stuff, which is great. I don't want to miss a good opportunity or something we could learn because I didn't ask the right question or bring up a specific topic. So towards the end of the conversation, I open it up. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you think is important or that you want to make sure we talk about while we're in front of the audience? Floor is yours.
The only thing I would recommend, I would encourage people to don't let transactional relationships just fly by without it being an opportunity to practice your pitching arm, is make it yours. Own that interaction and make it unique. And that will keep you sharp for when you really need to think on the spot. Avoid saying but or however in everyday conversation, because that's the same as training in any sport as well, is when you practice it basically in the off season, when it doesn't matter, when you practice, then it's going to be ready for you when it really matters. And then the last thing is do 1,000 punches a day. Figure out what that is. Whether it's calling people, whether it's sending out notices, is be disciplined. Too many people will try it 4 or 5 times and then say, well, this doesn't work, and give up. You've got to be consistent. Be ready to change if it's not working, but don't just pivot too fast. There's an old martial arts phrase, man who chases 2 rabbits gets no dinner. So don't be afraid to stick with something with discipline. And then that'll get you to the right pitch.
I love it. Well, so before we wrap up, Stevie, so we just started and you're a perfect fit for this, so I'm going to try to twist your arm while I've got you in front of everybody. We just started doing live streams every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern. And so we schedule those out, but that's a live stream where we just riff for a couple hours on whatever we decide. We take questions from the audience. It's good. We just did the second one last week. We had almost 300 people watch it. So it's like picking up steam pretty quickly. I would love to get you onto a live stream at some point in the future when schedules allow. Would you be willing to come onto our live stream with me?
I would have to work out my schedule because Thursdays are usually taken up on my schedule. But if I can make it fit, I would love that.
Yeah. Look,
Yeah.
I get the real world, but
Yep.
I'm gonna just shoot you a note and see if there's a
Yeah.
way to make it happen. And I'm not opposed to trying to tweak it. I got to talk to my producer though. He might tell me we got the audience coming at 6, but we'll
Yeah.
see. But yeah, you're a perfect fit for it. I'd love to have you on there.
Well, if people are willing to listen to me flap my gums, hey, I'm there.
They listen to me, and you're much more captivating than me. So I like our odds. I like our odds.
Better looking, you know.
True. You've already established that, but I appreciate you getting into it one more time.
I didn't want to drill it home, but I felt it was necessary.
Oh, good stuff. Well, Stevie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate it. Really enjoy our conversation and learned a ton of things. Guys, go back and watch this again because with all of the things about the human brain that Stevie talked about, all of the techniques in terms of the 1,000 punches and avoiding the words but or however or some of the other, what was the term you used for him?
Negations.
Negations. Thank you.
Yep.
Those negation words, like you're going to see an immediate change in your interactions with people if you start practicing these things. There's such good stuff in there, so don't miss it. So, Stevie, until next time, even if we can't make the live stream work, love to catch up with you at some point in the future. So we'll just keep you on the return list and get you back on here one way or another.
It was an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Really appreciate it.
All right, man.
Okay, have a good night.
Good night.
Thanks. Okay, guys, there you go. So awesome conversation. Loved having Stevie educate us on all the things that he's learned through the years. Love his approach. I'm a big fan of humor. Maybe you like to be more serious than I am, but I'm pretty sophomoric most instances, so it fits really well with me. Try to get Stevie on the live stream because he'd be a perfect fit for it. If not, we'll get him back at some point and have another conversation with him because I think we never talked about his books. There's other things and other subjects I'm sure we could spend a lot of time on and learn from him on as well. And anytime someone that gets paid to train and educate people is willing to come on and teach us some of that stuff for free, I'm going to take full advantage of it because I might be dumb, but I'm not that dumb. When we have that value proposition available to us, we're going to take care of it. So Stevie, thank you again for coming on. Loved our conversation. You did a great job as we knew you would. And really appreciate you sharing all that with our audience and educating them. So James puts it up over here every day. Head over to our website, saltygingertalk.com. All the podcast episodes are there. Links to all the social media accounts are there. Publish a newsletter every weekday you can subscribe to there. Make sure you like, share, comment, subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you consume it on. Couple episodes where we do interviews like the one we just did with Stevie, and you get all the value from that. We do other episodes that talk about specific subjects and give you education and training on how to make those things happen in your life so you can build a life of meaning and purpose that you want. And then we do the live stream every Thursday at 6, and you don't want to miss any of that stuff. So make sure you're subscribed so you're able to catch all that. All good stuff. You don't want to miss any of it. Make sure you catch our next episode. We'll see you there.